All right, so this video is, so we did factor by grouping, and then once we learned how to factor by grouping, then we used the AC method. And toward the end of the AC method, we did some where A was equal to 1. And so all 5 of these are when A equals 1. You might look at these, we'll say, well, A is 2, and over here A is 3. Well, true, but what can we factor out of letter A? All of these terms are divisible by 2. And so again, when we factor, we always want to make this thing as small as we can before we deal with factoring. All right, so I have plus 18. And so if you remember, the AC method was to take 1 times 18, and we get 18. And then we look at our middle term, which is 11, and what multiplies to give me, so what multiplies to give me 18, but adds to give me 11. And so that would be 9 and 2, and 1 is positive. Well, they're both positive, right? And so we went through and then we would break this up. But what we found is, if you actually paid attention in the last few problems for that previous video, is that once I get my factors here, I don't need to break this up into plus 9x plus 2x, right? I don't need to go through this process of breaking this middle term up to then work on factor by grouping, because what happens is at the end of all this, so we leave our 2 out there, at the end of all this, this simply becomes x plus 9 times x plus 2. Okay, and if you're not quite sure why that is, go back and watch the previous video that was talking about using the AC method. And in particular, the ones I'm talking about would be letter C, D, and E. Letter C, D, and E from that previous video use this method. All right. Letter B, same thing. We can see here that everything's divisible by 3. 3 goes into 12. I know it goes into 135 because 1 plus 3 is 4, plus 5 is 9. So 3, we're going to factor out the 3. Oops. And that gives us x squared minus 4x minus 3 doesn't go into 1, but it goes into 13. It goes in 4 times with the remainder of 1. So I'm going to bring my 1 over here with the 15. And 3 goes into 15 5 times. So 3 times 45 is 135. And then what are my factors that multiply to give me 45? So I have 1 and 45. I've got 2 and 3 and 15. Actually, let's go ahead and we've got plenty of room over here to the left. Let's go ahead and list our factors over here. So 1, 45, 3, 15, 5 goes into 45 9 times. And so keep in mind, we have to multiply to get a negative 45. So one has to be positive, one has to be negative, and they have to add to give me negative 4. That means the bigger numbers have to be negative in order for us to be able to add to get our middle term, which is a negative number, negative 4. So I can see here that it's these two factors, and so we're done. We don't need to go through and do the AC method, because if we did, we still can. Like I said, it works every single time, but we don't need to, because when we get done, we're going to end up with this anyway. So this is a nice thing when A equals 1. Once you find your factors that you would use for the middle here, they actually end up just being your factors at the end for your answer. All right. Now, once you get better at this, you don't even need to sit here and work this out. We have 18. What multiplies to give me 18 and adds to give me 11? Well, that's 2 and 9. So this is just x plus 2 times x plus 9. Okay, so again, as we get more and more comfortable with this, it's really just a matter of figuring out whether your terms, your factors are positive or negative. Like for the example here, I've got factors of 10, so 1, 10, 2, and 5. They have to multiply together, give me a positive, so it could be plus plus, right? Or it could also be -1, -10, and -2, and -5. And so if you look at this, they need to add to give me -11. Well, that has to be these two. And once I find those factors, we just write this out as x minus 1 times x minus 10. So I like learning the AC method first because then you actually understand why this works and you're much more likely to remember the shortcut that way. All right. What multiplies to give me 25 but adds to give me 10? That is x plus 5 times x plus 5, right? 5 times 5 is 25. They add to give me 10. And since they are the same, I can just go ahead and say this is x plus 5 quantity squared. There's my answer. Okay, that's how you factor when a equals 1. And again, for a and b, a didn't equal 1, but we were able to factor out a number so that once we did that, we ended up with 1 down below in the next step.